Hey, what's up everyone? Thanks for checking out another video. So today I'm going to be talking about how to spice up your rhythm and chord playing by adding single note embellishments. This will really get you into that Neo-Soul R&B sound that's really big today. Now there are a lot of ways to get this sound, whether you're talking about double stops or playing with the triads, playing with chord and melody, and all this other theory stuff, but one of the quickest ways is to take some very common chords that you might already know and to find where on these shapes you can always add an embellishment. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about a very common major and minor shape on our E string and a very common major and minor shape on our A string. And we're going to look at the embellishments that kind of naturally fall under these shapes. So our first progression is going to be E major 7 to a D major 7 to a C sharp minor 7 to a G sharp minor 7. So let's take a look at some of these chords. So here's an E major 7. If you don't know this shape, it's going to be our root note on our A string, ring finger 9th fret on D string, middle finger 8th fret on G string, pinky 9th fret on B string, and then our pointer finger is barring. Now one of the first things that I like to do is I like to take a look at the shape and see what fingers I can move around while still holding on to the core of the shape. Right, so if I take this chord, if I were to move my middle finger, that dramatically changes the sound, right? So I can't really play around with that, right? So I look in each chord to see what has to stay and what I can move around. So for this shape, almost always you can move your pinky, and you can move it around this little box on the top of the chord. So in E major, you would have 7th fret B string, 9th fret B string, 7th fret E string, 9th fret E string. And so you can hear I'm still holding on to the main sound of the chord. It's that major 7 sound. I'm just adding different extensions, and depending on the context, they can be some really nice sounding embellishments. So our next chord was a D major 7. So it's going to be the same shape, so it's going to be the same concept. We're going to lift up our pinky, and here we're going to have our 5th fret B string, 7th fret B string, 5th fret E string, 7th fret E string. So already right there we can start to groove this, right? We could even take that as like a small progression. But let's keep going. So the next chord is a C sharp minor 7. So if you don't know that, that's going to be our 4th fret A string, 6th fret D string, our pointer is going to bar 4th fret G string, our middle is going to get 5th fret B string, and our pointer finger is going to bar 4th fret E string as well. So for this shape, again, almost always very common movements that you can do is you can play around on your E string, going from your pointer to your pinky in a minor 3rd, so it would be 4th fret to the 7th. On our B string, we can do our middle finger to our pinky. We can often always lift up our middle finger, catch the 9, and then on G string we can play around with the 7th and the root, so that would be 4th fret and 6th fret. So those are some very common shapes that, again, most of the time for this minor 7 shape, it will work. And our last chord for this progression is a G sharp minor. And so there's a couple ways that you can play it, and I kind of tend to bounce between the two. I don't know if I have one main way that I play. One way would literally just be taking like a G sharp minor bar chord and just lifting up your pinky. Another way that I like to play is I'll have my thumb catch the root note on our E string, and then I'll have my pointer finger play 4, 4, 4 on D, G, B strings, and I'll have it kind of coming up and muting that A string. They both work, so it just depends on which one. For me, it depends on which one I'm feeling in the moment. If there's one that's more comfortable for you, then you can just go ahead and do that. But the shape that we have around this chord would be really just playing with our G sharp minor pentatonic. So you can start. Typically, I'm playing these embellishments. For this chord, it'd be D string down. So it'd be like 4, 6 on D, 4, 6 on B, 4, 7 on B. Did I say? I'm sorry. 4, 6 on D, 4, 6 on G, 4, 7 on B, 4, 7 on E. Okay, so we just went through a few very common R&B neo-soul chords, and we found some very common embellishments that we can do around these shapes most of the time. So just a couple notes that I want to make on this. First, just stylistically, I wouldn't just strum the whole chord and the embellishment, right? If I was playing this, I wouldn't do... I mean, you can, but it doesn't really get the same effect, versus I'm kind of blending, strumming part of the chord, picking just the embellishment, and I'm kind of weaving in between that. Right, you can hear I was strumming, but not like fully the whole chord. I was just kind of doing parts of the chord. I was breaking up, whether I was hitting the lower parts of the chord, the upper parts of the chord. When I did the embellishment, I was picking mostly just letting that single note ring through while the chord was already ringing through. I was picking the single notes, and that tends to get much more of the sound. One other point that I want to make is you really want to establish the groove, right? So you don't want to base your songs on these embellishments. You want to base your songs on the groove and the feel, and then add the embellishments to taste, right? So I wouldn't just play... I mean, you can, but if I was making a song out of this, I would really first and foremost establish a strong and solid groove, right? So you could play something like this. Once you have the groove established, then you can add some of those embellishments. Right, and you can hear that sounded much more like a song because I established a groove first and I hung out on that, and then I added my embellishments to that. So I wasn't basing my playing on the embellishments, I was basing my playing on the grooves and the chords that were going on, and I'm just adding those embellishments to taste. And that's going to get your songs a lot farther than if you're just trying to cram in a million embellishments just for the sake of sounding like you can do this Neo-Soul stuff. It's way, way better to just establish a groove and add a touch of embellishments than bass you're playing on embellishments. Okay, so I want to do one more sample progression with you to get you another chord. So we're going to do B major, and this is a very common chord that I like to play. It's not necessarily just an R&B, Neo-Soul sounding chord. I do this chord all the time, but it does work in R&B. So here's B. So what I would do is I would get the root on my E string with my thumb. So it's going to be 7th fret E string, that's B. And then my ring finger is going to do 9th fret D string. Middle finger is going to do 8th fret G string. And pointer finger is going to get 7th fret B string. And again, my ring finger is just kind of touching up on that A string to mute it. So for this shape, again, looking at keeping the core of the chord, I can't really move any of these, right? There's no bar, right? So the only option I have is playing with my pinky. But what you can do is you have, again, a very similar block to your major 7th chord on your A string. I could do 7th fret B string and then bring my pinky to 9th fret B string, and then I could play 7th fret E string and then 9th fret E string with my pinky. You might have to adjust to get up here, right? I lost the thumb and I barred. So it kind of depends on the melody you're going for and the context if you're going to want to do that. But I have a hard time flattening my finger out and holding on to the thumb. So for me, I have to adjust. But a sample progression we could do would be B major to D sharp minor to C sharp minor back to a B major 7 on our A string. Now let's add some sample embellishments we could do to that. All right, and that's the basic idea. So this stuff is great because you don't have to learn a whole ton of theory, right? We don't have to learn about double stops and chord melody, playing the scales all across the neck, learn about triads, all that stuff, right? We just took some very simple and very common chords and put them in a progression, and then for each chord, just found very common and very applicable hammer-ons and pull-offs that work for those shapes. And like I said, those embellishments will work for those shapes like 95% of the time. So don't get me wrong, learning the theory and learning the double stops and the triads and all of that stuff will enhance your playing. But this is a very good step to get you going in the right direction. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and I hope this helped. If you would like a video that's a more detailed step-by-step way of going about this, how to take a progression and exactly what I would do note for note, please leave a comment about that below. I'd be more than happy to make example progressions. I do that for my students all of the time, and so I'd be more than happy to put one of these out here. But yeah, I hope this helped, and I will see you guys next time.